Hi everyone and welcome back. After reviewing some 18 tapping DACs in the last 5 years or so, that was my sign to move on and check something else. In the last 2 years, I think I neglected most tapping releases and I didn't review many of them, mostly because to me they sounded very similar with some minor changes. Sure enough, we had, very different cases, very different feature set, but sound-wise there was not so much of a difference. And with every tapping release that I see basically the same DAC chips, the same output stages, the same clocking system, the same power supply implementations, and overall a very similar sound, and that part I didn't like. When the DX9 hit my test bench, that was a sign that something is changing, because that one sounded quite different compared to what it did before. But when their D90 Discrete was tested around 1 month ago, it was clear to me that finally tapping are not copying themselves and are trying some new stuff, trying to expand the knowledge. Today I'll try something that I believe sounds at worlds apart compared to anything that they've done before. This is an R2R ladder DAC made by Tapping in collaboration with Holo Audio. It's called Centaurus. It goes for $999 US. I'll be comparing this one later in this video with the D90 Discrete and also with the Gustard X26 III. So let's get this party started. Starting with D70 Pro and also with A70 Pro, Tapping adopted a new case design and a new UI. Their UI was colorful and modern, and the touch buttons surrounding their display also added a touch of futurism. I'm not exactly sure why they went back to the old UI on the D90 Discrete, because clearly their colorful and easy to navigate Aurora UI is a lot more interesting, and that's exactly what we're getting once again on the Centaurus DAC. Obviously, we're talking about the same fully Sensei machined unit made from a single block of aluminum. We have the same metallic feet with rubber inlays. We have a glass surrounding its display, so everything feels well put together and there isn't much to add in here. As with most tapping DACs, we have every single digital input on its back, except for BNC, and of course this is a fully balanced DAC, so I'm getting a pair of RCA and XLR analog outputs. It's important to mention that in the stock form it outputs 2 volts via RCA and 4 volts via XLR, but you can increase the voltage output to 2.5 volts and 5 volts respectively, which in my humble opinion slightly boosts its performance. Its UI is pretty complex but easy to navigate and understand. From there you can choose the oversampling mode, you can enable or disable a few things like Bluetooth or parametric EQ, and you can choose the on-off trigger channel. You can disable the passive preamp and let it work as a pure DAC. You can even enable USB 1.0 operation, so you can hook it up driverless to a gaming console of your choosing. You can enable a VU meter or FFT spectrum when the music is playing, making it a bit more interesting versus the D90 Discrete. I wasn't able to disassemble it, so I will rely on the pictures that I found online on its official webpage. But the most important thing to know is that this one is not relying on any kind of DAC chips, but on resistor networks or ladders, and we have hundreds of resistors that are forming 8 ladders. 4 of them are used for DSD material and another 4 of them are used for PCM material. So this is their very first R2R ladder DAC that was made in collaboration with Holo Audio, since these guys released plenty of R2R ladder DACs in the past. The Altera Max 2 FPGA is helping controlling the ladders, and it also unlocked additional functionality like the oversampling, non-oversampling mode, and there's another mode called the Best that will automatically switch the unit to optimal oversampling rate depending on the music's sample rate and internal processing capabilities. We again have the very best Bluetooth receiver chip that unlocks pretty much the nicest codecs available like LDAC and aptX Adaptive, but Use your brain, don't use Bluetooth because you'll be limiting its performance. I believe it sounds much better wired via any digital input you want, except for Bluetooth, of course. Last but not least, they once again implemented that parametric equalizer function that was present on the D90 Discrete, so once again, you can use that function on the Centaurus DAC. For that, you'll need to install an app on your PC or Mac. It's called Topping Tune. Connect your DAC to your PC or Mac via USB cable. Launch the app, and from there, everything is quite straightforward. You can pick the frequency, adjust the gain and Q factor, and you can even add or remove a preamp gain. It's up to you. The only thing you need to know is that the I2S input does not support the parametric equalizer function, and every other input supports it for up to 192 kHz and 32-bit PCME files. Alright everyone, so let's get down to business and let's address the most important question: how does it sound? And for the last 7 days or so, I tried this one in my stereo setup most of the time, around 5 days, and 2 days in my Head-Fi battle station, because I wanted to know how it sounds with speakers and headphones alike. And there are a few things that are more obvious via headphones and other things that are more obvious via speakers. So the first thing that I want to address with the Centaurus DAC is the tone in timbre. And over the years, I reviewed plenty of topping DACs. There was a feeling that topping was making DACs for the measurement crowd and not so much for true music lovers, for music-first audiophiles. And I had this feeling for a very long time because, yes, the technical performance was always impressive, but the tone and timbre, not so much. They were always going for this ultra-linear performance, flat frequency response. Nothing goes up and down, everything is ultra-linear, so at the end of the day, it's a little bit boring getting the same sound. Of course, there were a few tapping devices that sounded much more interesting to me, like DX9, D70, D70 Octo, E70 Velvet. Those were slightly sweeter, slightly more engaging sounding, slightly closer to the real thing, but everything else slightly different alterations of the same sound signature. The truth is, not so many tapping DACs could be described as organic or supernatural sounding or full-bodied or, things like that, but I'm happy to report that is going to change today with the Centaurus. This is a very different breed of tapping DAC. My current flagship DAC is also an R2R DAC, but it's considerably more expensive, and over the years I have tried plenty of such devices, and I think I have learned most of their weaknesses and most of their strengths. I'm happy to report that Centaurus is without a doubt a DAC that can infuse lots of naturalness back into the music. The tone and timbre is finally something that we could discuss about in tapping DACs, and if you want the easiest going, the smoothest and the most relaxing sounding DAC from topping, then this is that unit for sure. The Centaurus is almost at poles apart compared to something like D90 SE or D90 the Third or D70 Pro, sounding softer, a little gentler, rounding the frequency response, slowing down the transients a little bit and just fully relaxing your mind while listening to music. The second thing that you should know is that for the first time in a tapping DAC, honestly, I'm experiencing a rounding of the frequency response of the frequency extremes, more exactly, the sub bass and also the upper treble. So the upper treble is no longer as defined or as sharp, or there is slightly less energy in there. And yes, even a little bit less definition and less nuances and micro detail information. Especially if you engage that non-oversampling mode, there is definitely a little bit less energy, in that 60 to 20 kilohertz region, because definitely I can listen to some aggressive stuff, to like rock or electronica, and I wouldn't be bothered by that brightness happening in that region. And the same happens with the sub bass. So this one is not really the punchiest sounding bass that I've experienced in this price point. I believe the D90 Discrete is more impressive when it comes to bass punch, and Gustard X26 III is even more impressive in that regard. The bass heads out there, I shouldn't move to the next video because you can still engage that parametric EQ and add a little bit of energy in between 20 and 50 Hertz or something like that. The only thing that I want to recommend to you is that never use a higher gain than 3 dB in the bass or anywhere else in the frequency response, because it gets a little bit muddier sounding once you engage that parametric EQ function. Thirdly, the one and only frequency region that shines brightly on the Centaurus DAC, and it's almost an afterthought on everything else they made, the mid-range region. So this one is definitely does some magic tricks or something like that when it comes to mid-range, vocal performance, string-based instruments, wind-based instruments. Everything that has in this region is slightly livelier sounding. It's more real. It's not more detailed, it's not sharper, it's not, you know, clearer or something like that, but there is simply a little bit more emotion, more vibration, more energy oozing from that region. Yes, they have a few devices that are quite special sounding in the mid-range, like the X9, like E70 Velvet, like D70, D70 Octo, but this is more so, and the difference is not small, the difference is quite substantial, and you can hear that with a trained ear. So the mid-range region is definitely, you know, in my opinion, the best part of the Centaurus DAC, because everything that has to do with acoustic music, with vocal performance, sounds simply magical. And if you are into acoustic stuff, you know, all sorts of musical genres, this one will definitely impress you right away. The sound staging capabilities of the Centaurus DAC are pretty much on the same level with the D90 Discrete, and that's a pretty good thing, because D90 Discrete sounded quite wide open and at the same time quite wider compared to their past doings. When I started comparing this one with D90 Discrete and with the Gustard, only via loudspeakers I could hear that this one is a little bit deeper sounding compared to D90 Discrete, and D90 Discrete was a little bit wider, and Gustard was even more wider. But this one was definitely providing me that impressive depth that sounds quite magical when you listen to some live music. So I won't say that this one is super huge sounding, because that wouldn't be true, but at the same time there is a pretty nice holography and nice separation of the notes happening, you know, in terms of depth, that D90 Discrete or the Gustard are not doing so great in terms of depth. Although this one, again, is not so vast, you know, so huge sounding. Please do not expect sounds bouncing off your walls and, you know, just turning your head and something like that, because that won't happen with the Centaurus DAC. But at the same time, I cannot call this one upfront or on-stage sounding like most chip-based converters were doing it for me, except for the DX9. Dynamics are pretty good, but not that impressive in the non-oversampling mode. And it's definitely a little softer sounding, a little slower sounding. It's definitely pressing the brakes in non-oversampling mode, and it's not working so well in non-oversampling mode with fast, impactful tunes, with electronic music, with rock tunes. However, it can change the pace a little bit if you engage that oversampling mode. The sound will get a little bit faster, a little bit snappier, and if you move to oversampling times 16, it's definitely a little bit snappier sounding and a bit sharper sounding, and there is even a feeling that the definition and the contour of the notes is also better, like there is slightly more nuances going forward. So I like this part because you can fine-tune this one according to your preference, according to your setup, according to the music that you're listening. If you want to make it faster and snappier, just engage that oversampling mode. 1x, 2x, 4, 8, or 16, depending on how sharp you want to make it. Or if you want to make it gentle and soft, just engage that non-oversampling mode. The second part that I want to rave about this one would be its resolving capabilities, is detail retrieval. I don't believe it's bad, it's pretty good in here. It's definitely better compared to HiFiMan's EF499 and also EF500, but it's more or less the same, on the same level with HiFiMan 708. But that one has a very similar price point, and except of being a really good R2R DAC, it's also a very good headphone amplifier, and this one is just a DAC and passive preamp. So I believe its resolving abilities are pretty good. You can still hear plenty of nuances if your setup is up to the task. but at the same time, I believe at the same price, you can get higher resolving sounding units, even cheaper ones from topping portfolio like D70 Pro, D90 SE, D90 the third, D90 Discrete. Those are definitely bringing more information forward. Highly resolving sounding R2R DACs, they do exist. I have one, I believe, but they are usually super big, they are usually pretty costly, and some of them are costing you an arm and a leg. Okay guys, so let's compare the sound of the Centaurus DAC with the D90 Discrete and also with the Gustard X26 the third. And right off the bat, I will say that the Gustard is definitely pounding a little harder, and not only in the bass, but basically everywhere in the frequency response, including in the treble. No matter what you are listening to, you can feel that the sound is simply more physical, and you can hear it with your chest, you can hear it with your eardrums. Everything is simply a little bit punchier sounding, and it has a harder slam. The best part is that it's not offering the usual ESS Sabre glare that some ESS Sabre converters might offer. It's really a great sounding unit, and it can even be used as a Roon endpoint. The only problem is that X26 Pro is considerably more expensive. It's going for $15.99 US. So as you can see, it's much bigger, it's beefier, and it sounds exactly how it looks. So it sounds quite big, punchy, and it's very muscular sounding in a way. D90 Discrete feels like a mini version of the X26 the third, so it's very similar. Its transit response is impressive. It's also quite punchy sounding, but not exactly on the same level with X26. It has an amazing stereo separation. The soundstage is impressive on the D90 Discrete. There is very little I can fault about this one. It's really an amazing sounding DAC, and there is a strict balance in the frequency response. It's also incredibly fast and highly resolving sounding unit. It's almost undistinguishable from the X26 in this regard. The only things it doesn't do so impressive like X26 are dynamics. It's still impressive, but I can't say it's a hard pounding unit. The Centaurus makes the music a bit more alive, a bit more colorful, more textured, weightier, sweeter sounding, like there's simply more emotion to the music that you are listening to. The vocals are stronger, the guitars are whipping with more emotion, and the sound just overall feels more natural. The sound is also by a hair deeper sounding on the Centaurus, but not as wide and open as it is on the Gustard. The sound is softer and not as punchy, and therefore it might not be the best solution for your electronica or headbanging needs. The resolution is sitting on the last place on the Centaurus, and no matter what you do, some small nuances are lost in transit, things that are still there on the D90 Discrete and the X26 the third. In the end, this is not a perfect DAC, and I totally understand why some of you will choose the D90 Discrete, or maybe you'll add some more money and get that Gustard X26 the third that offers also Roon endpoint capabilities working as a streaming DAC. This one is really not offering you the last word in terms of resolution. It's not the fastest, it's not the punchiest sounding DAC, but at the same time it offers a very different skill set. It offers a better flow of the music. It's weightier, it's fuller bodied, it's sweeter sounding versus all of those previously mentioned units. Topping Centaurus is not about some perfect measurements appearing on the screen. It's about the engagement factor, it's about the experience, it's about feeling great while listening to music. It's about being there and about awakening some emotions while listening to music. And if that is important to you, then I can wholeheartedly recommend the Centaurus DAC because it does those things very well. And remember that you should choose the DAC that works best for you, not for me, not for your friends, not for my friends. You need to decide what really works for you because a perfect DAC does not exist. Okay guys, this is pretty much it. I have some few surprises in this year. Plenty of DAC reviews, of course, are coming, amplifier reviews, speakers and headphones and so on and so forth. So this will be a really exciting year. I hope you like it. Okay guys, see you soon. Bye.